Welcome to World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary, Boss, the podcast for busy professionals who want to plan unforgettable trips without the stress. If you're craving adventure, relaxation, or cultural immersion, but feel overwhelmed where to start, this is the show for you. Each week, we dive into travel tips, expert strategies, and actionable advice to help you save time, money, and hassle while helping you design your dream trip. From group getaways to romantic escapes to adventure packed journeys and budget friendly tips, we cover it all. I'm Ross, your host and travel enthusiast, with over a decade of experience balancing a demanding career while also planning trips to over 25 cities in Europe, all over the US, Central America, the Caribbean, and beyond. I've mastered the art of stress free planning, and I'm here to help you do the same. If you love what you hear, don't forget to follow the show, leave us a review, as well as share it with a fellow traveler. I want to make your next adventure the easiest and most memorable yet. Now, on with the show. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary, Boss. I'm your host, Ross. And if you're joining us from last week's episode, we're excited to have you back. We're going to dive into Porto, Portugal today. And if you're joining us for the first time, excited to have you here. If you're looking to go to Portugal, we also recorded a Azores Portugal episode last week where it's a 7-day itinerary. So go check that episode out if you have interest there. But for today's guide, we're going to talk through everything about Porto, how to get there, where to stay, best activities, must-see attractions, and talk through, and also hidden gems, restaurants. And I'm going to walk you through the 3-day itinerary that we did back in 2023, and really some of the real highlights there. So without further ado, let's dive in. And for how to get there, you're going to have Porto's main airport. We flew in from the Azores. So if you're following along and going by that itinerary, you can actually fly direct from the Azores. It's a 2-hour flight into Porto. If you're flying over from the US, there's some direct flights, but some will have layovers. And a lot of the times you'll either have that layover in the US and then you'll at a bigger airport, or you would then have that in Lisbon and then going over. So a couple options. If you are coming from the US and you do want to make Porto one of your stops, if you have a direct flight into Lisbon, that could be an option. And then there's actually trains that will take you up, and it's about a 2-hour ride. Or if you want to rent a car, you have that option. So a couple different options of how to get there, but the path that we took was we flew from the US to the Azores, and then it was about a 2-hour flight to Porto. Once you get to the airport, it's pretty close by to the main city. There can be some traffic, but for us, it was about a 25-minute Uber, and they do have Uber there. So getting from the airport to where you're staying, you can take Uber. You can also take the train if you'd like. And one other thing is if you are staying in an Airbnb or you're staying at a hotel, always check prior to see, do they have any sort of transfer options? Does your local Airbnb or just boutique hotel type host work with have a local guide or transport that they can connect you with and then give you a ride there? So that's what I would recommend, just from how to get from the airport to your hotel. And then once you're there, you want to find out, where do you want to stay, right? There's a bunch of different neighborhoods from a first timers and where you want to stay. If you've been there too, this is a great central spot, but I would say stay in the Riviera area because you have a really nice scenic view of the river. You're in the middle and in the center of everything. It's very walkable. You can go down to the water. You also can cross the bridge to go over where a lot of the different wineries are. So that's where I would suggest staying. I've got 2 options that I'll link in the show notes, and also we have it in our 16-day Portugal free itinerary download that you can find at our website, and we'll also link that within the show notes. But that will give you the links to where we stayed. And we had an amazing host who actually, he met us when we got there. He walked us through, hey, here's kind of where we had already planned it, but he gave us a couple other insider tips just from hosting there and living there for 25 years, of, where to eat, where some really good local spots. We had planned a lot of it out from food, but there are a couple other local spots that he recommended that we went and decided to try in some of our free days, that we did not plan. So that would be really how to get there, where to stay. I think those are going to be very important. And then from just what do we do once we got there, it kind of depends on how many days you have, right? If you're just doing one day, and you really want to do tourist stuff, I'm going to walk through some of the different locations and tourist destinations that we went. If you're wanting, like, you just want to go enjoy wine, do some wine tours, have brunch, right? I'm going to walk you through some of the stuff we did there. And prior to going, I did a lot of research into, what were the top rated restaurants, just through a couple different areas, and took that hard work away from you. And honestly, the places we went were so amazing that I'm going to highly recommend them. So I'll walk you through that. So when we first got there, we got there in the pretty early in the morning. So we were able to go drop our bags off. And a best practice is always just go back and forth with, again, whether it's your Airbnb host, whether it's your hotel, and see if you can have an early check-in, if you can drop your bags off. If you can't, right, are there any local storage, for bags? If you have just carry-ons, where you're not lugging around a checked, then sometimes you can just drag those wrong. But in Europe, I will say, with a lot of the older cobblestone streets, I would say try to find something where you can drop that off, or just time out your flight where you're getting there, where you can potentially do an early check-in. So that's one thing. Obviously, if you have a rental car, you can store them in there, but I I wouldn't suggest having a rental car in Porto. We saw a lot of people driving down different roads and then getting stuck and having to back out. And it's a city that it's pretty walkable. You can get a cab, you can get someone to take you around. So, but when we got there, we actually started out with brunch at Zenith Brunch and Cocktails. So that was amazing. They have all day breakfast and brunch. So we actually had brunch. At My fiance wasn't feeling well, and we had brunch around like 2 o'clock, and it was great. They have a massive menu. I think I got the chicken and waffles, and then she got something else. She wasn't feeling well, but there was so many different things. I think I also got a side pancake because it just looked so great. So I would highly suggest that. It's a cool little area that you walk up to, and it has an outdoor patio, which we really liked. Really good coffee. So highly suggest that. And then from there, I suggest just walking around. You can go visit the Palacio de Bolsa, which actually is the stock market. And then from there, it's right next to the Church of San Francisco. And then from there, you can stroll around and go to the Praça de Liberdade. And after that, and what's nice too is when you're down near the water, just walking around, seeing a lot of this. That's what we did, and you just kind of walked into different things. You could just, if you wanted to stop in a cafe, get an espresso, get a drink, anything like that. It's very walkable. There are stairs, a lot of them, so make sure that you do wear walkable shoes. That would be one thing that you definitely want to pack. And if you need a packing checklist, I've created over the past 10 years of travel from many lessons learned, many mistakes, trying out a bunch of different products. I've actually created a stress-free travel starter kit that helps you with, that packing checklist, a budget checklist, 5 insider tips. So if you want that, I've made it easy for you. I'll link that in the show notes, as well as you can grab that on my website. And then later in the afternoon, if you're familiar with Harry Potter, which probably everyone is, if you're a big fan, you could go to the Livraria Lello and get the Skip the Line tour. Honestly, I did it. It was a tourist trap. I wanted to go see it, but I'm glad I got to skip the line tour just because I was able to walk in and say, okay, this looks cool, but it was so cram packed. And if you're going in peak season, from June to I would say early September or just end of August before Labor Day, it's going to be slam packed and it's going to be hot. We went later in September or so, but even in that shoulder season, there, it still was crowded, and I went later in the afternoon, right before dinner. So just something to keep in mind. But if you do it, highly suggest getting the skip the line tour. I paid $20, and that was it was an extra $10 to skip the line. So I would highly suggest that, if you are going, but I didn't find it all that great. So if you don't want to go, take a look online, take a look at a picture, and I'll check the box for you. From there, we went to Tasco dinner. This place was on our list to do, and I had booked it, and like I had mentioned, my fiance wasn't feeling well, so I actually walked in, and service there was amazing. The bartenders, the guys there were awesome. I walked in, we had a reservation, and let them know, hey, we're not gonna be able to make it. She's not feeling well. And the guys were so great. They go, okay, well, you're here. Most time people just don't show up. So what do you want to drink? So they hooked me up with a drink. They brought me out different appetizers, and I just hung out at the bar and talked to them for like an hour and a half, and just had a couple cocktails on the house. Had a couple appetizers, and they were great. And then I told them, hey, I'm gonna bring, we're gonna come back, and because this was on the top of our list to come check out. So those guys were great. Highly suggest it. Service was great. I'll get to it after, here in a little bit, of other things that they did, but highly suggest Tasco. I did book reservations out 2 months in advance. So check that out. If you do want to go, make sure you plan that in advance. But from the appetizer I had, the food, my cousin and her boyfriend went. I had recommended it to them, and they said it was phenomenal. So highly recommend it. And then when we went back, we got some stuff. So I'll dive into that here in a little bit. So that's what we did, our first day. A lot of walking, a lot of stairs. So again, make sure you have those walking shoes. Day two, and if you only have 2 days, right, you don't have to do this. But since we had 3 days, part of, Porto's culture, what it's known for is port wine. So we wanted to make sure that we did the Douro Valley. So it was a full day wine tour. If you do have 3 days, 4 days, I suggest it. If you have 2 days and you want to do it, great. But if you want to spend more time in the city, maybe have 2 full days in the city. But for the Douro Valley wine tour, it was pretty easy. We went through Get Your Guide. They have them on Viator. They have them on TripAdvisor. So figure out which one you want. If you want a completely private tour, you can do that. If you want one with a group, we had one with two other couples. So it was 6 people total. We went in a Sprinter van. It was about an hour and a half, 2 hour drive out, and we went to a couple different wineries. And it was great. I mean, we got to have the scenic drive when we went to the wineries. We did the different wine tours. You got to taste the wine. Then also with it, there was a river cruise. So you got to go on a boat, and it was this wooden boat that literally just took you through the Douro Valley. So, and the weather was phenomenal, which made it even greater. And then you did a lunch, and then from there you went to another winery, and then at the end you went to a winery, but one of the wineries where a local walked you through kind of the historic, just stories, heritage, and everything. You got to taste the tawny, which is really good. The port wine is very sweet, so just something to be aware of. If you are doing it in the morning, there's definitely a little bit of a sugar rush, but overall we liked it. I'm glad we did it. If you are big into that, there's also, if you do want to spend more time there, there are some pretty cool places that you can just go up and stay a night or two, if that's your vibe. For us, we just wanted to check it out. We're not the hugest wine people, but obviously, if you're there, you definitely want to indulge yourself in the culture. So that was a good time. And when we got back from the Douro wine tour. Since it didn't offer dinner, I wanted to try this place called Restaurant Chama, which one of probably the best meals we've had. Very affordable. I think between the two of us, we spent $120, and it was a 7 course meal. So funny enough, when we got there, we had made reservations. They sat us at the bar, and we had thought, oh, we kind of wanted to be sat like in a seat. And honestly, it ended up being great that we got sat at the bar because we got to just chop it up with the bartender. He was making us drinks, hooked us up with a couple on the house, gave us a couple of their house shots. So that was good. And but also we got to be right there where we got to see how they were preparing the food, making it. And they brought out, I mean, there was fish, there was meat, there was fish appetizers, there was sashimi, there was salad, there was soup. It was all just very good. And it was a 7 course meal for, I mean, like 35, $40. And then along with the drinks, along with what they hooked us up with. So just the affordability, that's one thing I loved about Porto. And that food there was phenomenal. And it was pretty central. I mean, we could walk there from our Airbnb, and everywhere else that I talked about. Zenith was 15-minute walk. Tasco was about 10, 15-minute walk. It's pretty walkable. This restaurant Chama was 10-minute walk. It was, there's a lot of hills. So for ladies, don't wear heels because it's cobblestone and it's very steep. So something to just keep in mind. But that was probably one of my favorite meals of the entire trip. Highly suggest that if you check out our itinerary, you'll be able to grab the links there. Also, with upcoming blog posts, we'll have links to that in there as well. So check those out. And then the last day, we decided to get brunch at Swallow Decadence Brunch. So this was walking distance. It was really good. Highly suggest that. I would say that and Zenith, if you're doing brunch, do those two. I did a lot of research, and those were the two that I landed on. That very affordable, really good food, good vibes. So highly suggest those. From there, you can go back to your Airbnb if you want, or you can just go over to Costa Riviera. So you would walk across the bridge. So you can go up high or you can go down low. And what we did is after brunch, we just wanted to walk. So we walked across the riverfront of Porto, walked under the bridge, walked over, and then we actually did a wine tour. On the other side's actually some of the best views you'll get. So just walking over there was great. From there, we did the Cálem wine tour, so that was great. We just walked in, and if you do it early, you can go grab it. You just go in and ask them, hey, what times do you have for wine tours? Or you can do it online. Since my fiance still was kind of overcoming not feeling well, we decided to go day of and just play it by ear, which we had to wait 90 minutes. So we actually, since all the wineries are right there, you actually can walk from Cálem next door to Sandeman, which Sandeman actually has wine tours inside, a winery inside, or it also has, if you want to just grab drinks, we sat on the patio and it was great. There was a massive patio, so you can there's beer, wine, liquor. So that was a really good one. We liked that. And then from there, we did the Cálem wine tasting, which took, I think it was 90 minutes. So you got to go through the winery, do a tasting at the very end, which I highly recommend. I recommend just doing one out of any of the ones. There's Sandeman, there's Cálem. Those are the two main ones in the front. And then if you want any other options, you can check those out online, and there's plenty. And then from there, we walked to this is a must do. We walked to the Terrace Lounge, the Terrace 360 Lounge, and that has awesome rooftop views over the river, and you get to see all of Porto. And they had a DJ up there. Weather was great, just overall enjoyable spot. So definitely check that out. And then from there, if you want to, we just kind of ate throughout the day, just grabbing like stuff here and there. There was actually a little festival going on. And there's food stands, things like that. So you can grab appetizers. And then we walked. One thing that you have to do is for sunset, and you can do this multiple nights. We just did it. We just, excuse me, we just did it one night, and you'll walk across the Luis Bridge, and there's Jardim do Moura, which there's best sunset. It's actually like a huge party. You just walk up, and everyone is gathering right there. There's a whole area where people are playing music, dancing, drinking beers. People get up there, probably an hour or two before the sunset and just hang out. So that's a definite must. And then we just wanted something light. We had been eating a ton of seafood. We had been trying all the different foods. So we did there's a pizzeria Bella Mia, which is top rated pizza spot. You can walk there from the Airbnb. And one other thing that you need to try too is Caste or Casa Guedes. That's actually the in Porto. That's a sandwich that you just got to try. So definitely do that. But that's how we spent our 3 day trip to Porto. One thing too is when you are going to the Porto airport, we flew out pretty early down to the Algarve region, and the Porto airport was pretty crowded. Checking in bags, all of that. So make sure you get there early. There's also you can buy a fast pass on your phone, like when you check in, and it's like $10 extra. We bought that and we were able to skip. If you aren't checking a bag, you should be good, but we had brought check bags. And if you have that fast pass, once you check in your bag, or even if you have a carry on, you just pretty much cut the line. And that was definitely well worth spent. So I suggest getting that. We got to the airport probably 2 hours early, and it definitely was crowded. So just something to keep in mind. A couple other things is the best viewpoints are definitely the Jardim de Moro, as well as the 360 Lounge. There's a couple others, but I would just suggest, depending on how much time you have, looking those up. That's what we had to fit into our itinerary. And also ask your Airbnb host. A lot of times they can give you those. And then seasonally, best time again, going back to shoulder season. If you've tuned in, that's what I'm all about is traveling in that April, May, September, October, where you get the good weather. You miss peak tourism. If you can't, right? If you have kids in school, if right, you just can't do that. Figuring out planning well in advance, figuring out when maybe isn't a big holiday, because that's then, and what also, are going to be good flights, is going to be key. And then, I mean, really from there, it's going to be similar to, they use the euro, budgeting wise, it's very affordable. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts about or about Portugal and Porto, is the affordability. I mean, that's when we came back, I realized it was so cheap, and it made the trip amazing. But other than that, I mean, there's not a ton else that you need to know. I think it's really just looking at how do you get there, when do you want to go. Packing wise, we got you covered there. Go check out that stress free starter travel kit. And then from there, I mean, if there's other tips and tricks, stay tuned to our social media content series where we walk you through step by step. If we were planning a trip, what questions would we have, right? And everything in between. So we have a full Portugal and Porto deep dive series where we answer all those. So go check those out. And then we'll also have, if you like getting all of your information by reading, we'll also have some blog posts coming out here soon as well. So appreciate everyone tuning in. If you are new here, make sure you do follow and subscribe to the show. That way you don't miss any upcoming episodes that we do have coming out, because we do launch solo episodes every other week based on specific topics and tutorials. And then for every week, every Wednesday, we have expert interviews with different people throughout the travel industry that share their stories, share tips and tricks around different topics. So always bringing on good guests. I'm always trying to share some value. And yeah, if you do like this, make sure you give us a 5-star review if you think it deserves it, and then share it with a friend or family member that you think needs to travel more. But we will talk to you next week. Thanks again for tuning in.